On this Aircheck episode, Cat Country 98.7 program director and morning host Brent Lane joins us.
Brent tells us about country radio life in Pensacola, Florida, with successful promotions and stories of the Manna Hat, biggest and best brushes with fame, and what makes Cat Country 98.7 so successful as it continues receiving awards for its years of community service.
Giddy up.
Welcome to Aircheck Season 3, a podcast about radio's personality from radio personalities, managers, consultants, owners, and your most humble hosts from Philadelphia, Rich DeSisto and Paul Kelly.
I'm Rich DeSisto.
And I'm Paul Kelly.
On this Aircheck session, we're joined by a country radio pro, on the air and off the air. He's the program director in Pensacola, Florida at Cat Country 98.7. He's also the morning host on the station.
Awesome.
Brent and Candy, your local friends with a microphone.
It's always good to wake up and laugh. Starts your day off right. Laughing just makes the day better.
WYCT Pensacola, locally owned, locally operated, and 7 rescue dogs between them. On Cat Country 98.7.
He also supports over 12 nonprofit organizations throughout the community and touches the lives of thousands of people each year through his volunteer efforts. He has dedicated himself to Manna, where he has served on the board of directors for the past 11 years, including serving as board president as well as chairing several committees.
Somehow, he carved out some time to talk with us here on Aircheck. Please welcome Brent Lane.
Thank you so much. Wow, this is incredible. Thank you, guys. I appreciate this. This is awesome.
Brent, it's great to have you here on Aircheck. The show starts with congratulations, and there's going to be congratulations for you through the show, just based on who you are, what you've been doing in radio. To start, Cat Country 98.7 WYCT Pensacola, Florida, recently voted and named by your country radio and industry peers Station of the Year for Small Market at the annual Country Radio Show convention in Nashville during the Country Aircheck Awards show. And Country Aircheck is a trade publication that sponsors the show. So again, congratulations. But before you tell us about the award, I've been to the Country Radio Show CRS convention before. There's many who have not. It is an experience. Can you sum it up in as many or as little words as you'd like?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for broadcasters in the country radio world to kind of come together with their music counterparts. And I think what makes it special is, particularly in our genre, I feel like we are all congratulators of each other. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, I don't know if you get that in rock radio, or I don't even know if you get that in talk radio. I think country music broadcasters kind of all feel like, you know, hey, we're going to root each other on. At least that's been my experience. In CRS, it really is an opportunity to get away, glean some, not just knowledge, but like some fabulous ideas. I mean, I have been inspired by some of the more recent, you know, country radio seminars, not just walking out of there with great panel discussions, but also, you know, sometimes it's spending that time at, sidelines, just kind of hanging out and talking over, you know, a promotion you did with somebody. It might be West Coast, and I have really come away with some great opportunities for our station from doing that.
There are some things that happen at the Country Radio Show that don't happen at a lot of, or I should say, any other convention. An example is the artist ID opportunity that radio stations have. Describe that.
So when you sign up for Country Radio Seminar, you kind of put in your information as to how you want artists to do, you know, liners for your radio station.
Hey everybody, this is Garth Brooks, and Brent and Candy care about their community.
So to get that back and have Garth Brooks and, you know, Maren Morris and a whole bunch of, you know, contemporary and relevant artists talking about your radio station, it really is a huge benefit, I think, in terms of setting your station apart. I mean, if you are in competition with somebody who's never been, it does set you apart. And it also saves a lot of work in terms of, you know, having to, you know, truck that recorder out to every, you know, station concert you end up at, and hoping to, you know, about half of those. So pretty special.
You think of, say, a top 40 radio convention, they don't set aside time for Post Malone and Lady Gaga to sit in a room and record IDs for music directors and production directors and program directors from all across the country. But that's what makes country radio different, as you started to describe, is the brotherhood, the brethren of the folks that work within the industry. It comes straight from the top down through the artist, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's special. I mean, there's a unique bond between the artists and the radio personalities and the radio itself. I think that, I always look at it as an opportunity to if I can use whatever tools I have to connect an artist to our listeners, then we win, and the listeners win, and the artists win. And so I think when you look yourself as a conduit, which I think country radio specifically has built up a long reputation of being a conduit for listeners and artists, that bond's pretty special, and it works, to everybody's benefit. And to your point, I don't think it exists in other genres.
Not to mention that Nashville is a fun town to have a convention in for 3 or 4 days.
Man, oh man, that is a good time. That is a good time. No doubt about that.
Well, Brent, Paul mentioned the other type of radio conventions and the other formats. He and I have attended a few over the years. And as we all know, things just don't happen at the convention center, the hotel, or the hallways. They don't just end at 5 o'clock and everybody goes their separate way back to their rooms and end up, turning in for the night. But they go out. They go to the clubs. They hang out all night long. They see the different artists performing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of interesting in recent years, when Jason Aldean and Luke Bryan and Blake Shelton and Florida Georgia Line all have, their own clubs now on Broadway. A lot of those after parties or, record label sponsored events happen, that's where they go. And so it was pretty cool, man. One of my favorite experiences was seeing Luke Bryan before literally going and getting on a plane and flying out to go do American Idol. This would have been CRS 2018, I think.
Welcome to the first official performance inside of my bar, right? We don't have a set list. We're just going to start playing some music. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
It was neat, man. Nobody knew he was going to play. Some of us were invited because we were there. So it was fun to kind of watch the faces of patrons who had no idea what was about to happen. And so, and I always think that's cool, man. I mean, I think that's one of the coolest things. I always want to, be able to tell the story. I would love to hear the story from listeners when it happens to them, when something cool like that happens. I mean, if you're standing in a club, you didn't know anything was going to go on. You just happen to know you're at Luke Bryan's club, and Luke Bryan walks out and plays, and you just paid the cover. Like, what a story, And, how many times can you imagine those 30 people who were stuck in Atlanta with Tim McGraw singing in a karaoke lounge because he was on a long layover? What a story.
That's right. That's right.
That's cool stuff, man.
That's what memories are made of, and you can't make that stuff up. It just happens there. That's what makes Nashville kind of magical, especially around that time of the country radio show.
There was a guy standing next to me who was like, "Man, what's everybody coming in here for? Like, who's gonna play?" I'm like, I don't know. I bet you that guy's like, "This is one of my top 3 performances of my lifetime."
The General Jackson is a steamboat that runs up and down the Cumberland River there. And in the past years, record labels would invite some select program directors and music directors on there. And, they would have an artist and a party. Did you ever partake in any of those events?
I missed the General Jackson trips for my CRs. I heard about it. I spent a lot of time, my ops manager, Kevin King, and I would, talk a lot about our strategies when going into CRS. And so the General Jackson, I never had to be a part of, although there's countless stories from that experience. Some of them are not all, are less than tawdry. So,
well, I started with your most recent award, and I say most recent because there are other awards that you as a broadcast person as well as your radio station has received. We're talking about the 2021 Country Air Check Award show that happened at CRS this year. Talk about how you get considered as a radio station for that.
CRS is kind of interesting because it's the opportunity to vote in the category. And the first couple of rounds, or people write you in. So we're fortunate in that we actually have a pretty good sized broadcast group. We're locally owned and locally operated, but I bet I have 30 people that actually work within our company across our station group. So when we get the note that, we're up for submission, like that's usually how it starts. I mean, I like to think that some other folks in the industry would think highly enough of me to put something like that in for our station or, for me personally. But I'm pretty sure, like everybody else, it probably starts in their station group, and then you make it to the next round, and then you start voting for, the people you think do a great job. I would be remiss if I did not say Brent Michaels from KUZZ is a name that pops up frequently, and I find that to be, high praise to be in a category with Brent. I respect a lot about what he does, and So, and you start to kind of look for those names. And to be honest with you, man, I mean, and that's half the battle is I think you just want to be considered by your peers in being competitive, I mean, I'd like to think I could be at the top, but more importantly, I just want to think that people respect me for the job that we do in our community and how it represents country music nationally. And so that's a lot of what those represent for me.
Hey, this is Luke Combs, and welcome to CRS 2020.
Hi, this is Old Dominion. Welcome to CRS.
Hi, I'm Charlie Monk, one of the founders of the Country Radio Seminar, and welcome to CRS 2020.
Hey, y'all, it's Carly Pierce. Welcome to CRS.
Hey, this is Blair Garner.
Hi, I'm Michelle Tiger-Kammer, or MTK, with Big Machine and BMLG Records.
Welcome to CRS 2020.
Welcome to CRS 2020.
Welcome to CRS 2020.
CRS is kind of cool because it's very much peer oriented. I think once you get into that final category, the only way to win is to really have your peers go, yeah, man, you've done a great job or you've made a difference. CMA and ACM awards are a little different. Those are submission packages, and those require some prep time.
Air Check Season 3 just wouldn't be possible without Seasons 1 and 2. Ugh, sounds like there's going to be a copywriter position opening soon. Air Check Season 1 has Nina Blackwood and MTV's launch, Eddie Trunk's early career days, and Neil Mursky's FM movie moment. Air Check Season 1, available now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also tell your smart speaker to play Air Check Podcast.
As you mentioned, the peer-oriented awards, which is what the CRS show is, but WYCT Cat Country has got to do a tip of the cowboy hat, if you will, for other awards it has received that are not just industry peer, but CMA Country Music Awards 2017.
Yeah, man, that was huge. The CMA was my big unicorn. Like, that was something that we just never felt like we could break through. And I'll be honest with you, man, I went to a CRS panel about the CMA awards, and that was the year that we got in. And Lon Helton told me some great advice. He said, the thing about the CMA awards is that I'm looking for you to capture my attention in the first 15 seconds of that tape. And it changed everything about how I did the tape. And I definitely credit that with any wins and nominations. Like, I repurposed my thought process in how to put together a quality submission. I'm super stickler for, when we do the written portion of it, I need it all to match. We actually use PowerPoint as our base platform for designing the written portion of the CMA awards. And, so it ends up being 30, 40 pages long. And I want the logo to be in the exact same spot on every page all the way through. And I'm sure my team would tell you I'm somewhat tyrannical about no stretched pictures, no stretched logos. It has to be, we have to go through and do it. And that's probably the biggest part of just checking in. And sometimes I think that matters. In fact, I can't remember who it was at CRS who gave us a nod to the the very distinct creativity of our CMA award. But it was important to me.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. So,
and CMA 2019 as well.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of being back to back because you're not eligible 2 years in a row. So you have to take a year off in between. So if you win station or personality of the year, you can't submit the following year in that category. So that was really a big deal. We've been. I think as an industry, right, I think you always want to go in and serve your community as well as you can. And then to have whatever it is that you've done for your community be recognized at a national level, that's what the ACM CMA awards are. And to a great extent, the NAB awards too. So, like a Crystal Award or a Service to America Award, that's out of all stations, regardless of genre.
Here's something that Paul and I have talked about. The CMA Awards, television is where most people know about this, right? They see it, they watch it. Radio gets recognized during this show. Your radio station got recognized in 2017 and in 2019 during the broadcast of the CMAs. You don't see that in any other kind of show, right? The Grammys don't salute a radio station in San Diego or Philadelphia or New York. But in country, that just shows how much the industry believes in the importance of radio.
Well, I think that speaks a lot to the bond I was talking about earlier with artists and the music business in general. Again, if you act as a conduit, that is returned. And we so often in our overall country music industry get credited with being a conduit from artists to fans. You go back to the 1940s and you think about how many times somebody walked into a little station in Oklahoma that happened to have, 300,000 watts based on 300,000 watt towers pointed in different directions and changed their life because some guy took their, piece of plastic and set it on a record player and let it go. And I think that just continues today. And so it's impactful. And it is, I think, a lot of the reason why you have, people like Dan and Shay crediting country radio when they accept an award or something to that effect. And I think it's pretty neat, man. And I'm not going to lie. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you we didn't watch the show and be like, oh, they didn't thank radio.
Now, you talked about the PowerPoint, the 30 or 40 pages that you submit, but there's also an audio portion of this that people need to hear to believe what your radio station is. What's it like putting that package together to qualify for this?
Starting in about 2014, I got tired of scrambling at the last minute. So I try to have a meeting every month and require all of our air talent to bring me their 2 most award-worthy pieces of audio on a monthly basis. And that is super helpful to putting a submission together, because you really only have, like in the CMAs this year, it's 8 minutes worth of audio as a example of your radio station. Personality wise, it's 5 minutes. And as Lon said, man, you want to really capture somebody in the first 15 seconds. You don't, you're not in there doing all the blah, 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 blah. You really, it's bam, you got to hit it. So for me, the best way to do that is really to make sure that all of our talent, are one, it's a good reason for them at the meeting, the monthly meeting that we do, to be like, hey man, this is my award piece. Everybody gets to show off, what's your thing? My midday person's award piece this month is spilled chickens across the highway. It turned out to be pretty hysterical. It was, if you're playing chicken and then she got all the chicken jokes, I'm sure we'll cut something with that and it'll end up being pretty great. But the best part is I've already got it ready. And the process that we do our air checks with, our submissions with, this year we're eligible for both personality and for station. And usually I start with the personality tape and put it together because I usually know what I'm doing with the morning show. Then I will take that tape and give it to the imaging director. In this case, Big Moose is my afternoon guy who does the audio for it. And I'll let him take our stuff, pare it down, and then add his stuff to it. Now he and I will get back together and we spend about 2 weeks re-editing it. And sometimes it comes down to literally, I need you to take 1 second off this piece. I need to add one more beat of this piece. And it is a production. Like, people who go into this and just think they're stringing together, your average air check tape per se. I find that to be the wrong approach. There's some production value that helps for this. Over the many years of doing it, I would say you have to spend a little time and forethought. And sometimes, you're adding thematic elements that wouldn't have normally been there when you were putting the tape together in real time.
So how does it happen? How do the CMAs let a radio station and the listeners know that they've won? It doesn't just happen, right? You get a phone call from...
Yeah, well, so 2017, we got a phone call from Keith Urban. In 2019, we got a phone call from Carrie Underwood.
Good morning, Cat Country.
Good morning. Who am I speaking to?
This is Brent and Candy from Cat Country.
All right. This is Carrie Underwood. I have some news for you this morning. Congratulations, WYCT. You are the CMA Broadcast Award winner for Small Market Station of the Year.
Thank you so much, Carrie Underwood.
You're welcome.
Carrie,
you've made our morning.
You have made our whole morning.
It was my pleasure. Congratulations.
I have no words. Thank you so very much. What a thrill to represent our community in Nashville this year.
That's awesome. You deserve it.
Thank you very much. You are the best. I can't wait to hug on your neck at the CMAs.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like you show up and you've already won, and you can just be the bells of the ball.
I just want to know what I need to wear in a tuxedo to match one of your dresses. You just tell me, I'm in.
Rhinestones. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
I am so grateful. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, of course. Have a great day.
Man, it's awesome, dude. It's also super, the anxiety and the sweat level is high because you usually get told the day before, tomorrow morning, especially if you've made it and you're nominated. And of course, as they say, being nominated is winning. And it's true. But you really want to win. I mean, that's, you really want to win. So they started doing something where they wanted to tape your reaction, like use it for video or whatever. So they would tell you sometime between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. on the morning show, the artist may call you. So if that happens, please roll video on your phone or whatever. Man, Carrie Underwood called us and we had taped every phone call for the entire morning. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, hang on. Cat Country. Hi, I got a traffic tip. It's like, oh man. So when it finally happened, I imploded. It was awesome. So
it's Brent and Candy on the Cat Pack Morning Show, Cat Country 98.7, and I'm told we need to take this phone call.
Hello, it's Keith Urban.
It's Keith Urban!
It is?
I feel like Santa Claus this morning because I'm here to let you know that you guys are officially CMA Broadcast Winner Station of the Year.
Oh my God!
Come on!
Holy moly!
Yeah!
Keith Urban is on the morning show! This is the best day ever!
Yeah, you guys need some good news, and here it is this morning. Your listeners have incredible taste.
Oh, dude!
I don't even know what to say. Well, I love you, Keith Urban. And I love Nicole Kidman, and I'm so excited. Keith Urban. Wow.
Well, thank you.
I'm bringing it down. I'm bringing it down, man. I'm bringing it down. This is the best. Dude, you are like Santa Claus. This is the greatest day ever.
It's like the greatest thing I get to do is just bring good tidings in the morning to you guys and everybody in Pensacola. So congratulations.
Oh, my Lord. I cannot believe it. I am so... This is almost as great as watching you play at the Wharf last year.
This is way better. Come on, be honest.
Dude, this is such a fantastic phone call, and we are so honored to represent Pensacola in country music and in Nashville. And I have to say, getting your phone call today has just been an incredible blessing, man. Thank you for taking the time to do that. And woo!
It's my honor. I'm so glad I got to be the one who shared the good news with you all.
We're so happy. Could you do one thing for me? Can you say hi, Mary?
Sure. Hi, Mary.
That's our owner, and she loves you. We love you, and thank you so much.
I think you just made Mary Hoxine's whole day.
Yeah, you made all of our whole days and years, and you're awesome. Thank you.
Well,
Keith.
it's a team effort, so congrats to everybody there.
Man, it was awesome. Him chanting our call letters was like, that was next level. It was fantastic.
This is an Air Check Rewind, Season 2, Fred Jacobs.
We really had a lot of fun. I mean, back then, the radio station was very much a reflection of who you were as a person. When I programmed in Detroit, there were really 4 rock stations, and that was the case in a lot of markets. I mean, Philly was like that. Chicago was like that. Big markets had 3 or 4 stations that were all kind of similar in that they played rock and they had personality, so you really had to be a great radio station to stand out and win in that environment.
Air Check, a podcast about radio's personality from Radio Personalities. Seasons 1 and 2 available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. You can also listen on your smart speaker. Just say, Alexa, play Air Check Podcast, or OK Google, play Air Check Podcast.
So let's talk about Cat Country. I mean, it's a community-based radio station, and it's locally owned. And for people that are listening to this that don't know what that means or the importance of that is, what does it mean to be a locally owned radio station in this day and age, especially in the market your size?
Well, David Mary Hoxine started this process because he loved radio back when he was probably 4 years old. To be locally owned and make an impact, I think, is pretty significant because you end up finding yourself against the, iHearts and the Cumuluses and a lot of talented broadcasters for sure. We really go in and approach our competition. We approach whatever we do as a super service opportunity. Our secret to success is service. And I think that makes a big difference. And I think so when they established the radio station, and quite literally, the story of the station is they had to go to the FCC and get a license in 1986 for a brand new frequency in Pensacola, Florida. 98.7 didn't exist before they flipped the switch on it in November of 2003. Wow. Think about that. Assigned in 86, didn't sign on until 2003. That was enough time for an entire interchange to be built behind our building. So we still broadcast from the woods. But, there's some time and dedication in that. And the way they went, think about that. We literally went from absolutely no one had heard the frequency. None. We started as Christmas radio 98.7, playing all Christmas music, which nobody was doing at that time. And flipped to country the next, the day after Christmas. And then ultimately, it was Hurricane Ivan that kind of put cat country on the map. The station was just uniquely positioned in terms of where the tower was, that we were the only station that kind of stayed on the air. And so if you were looking for water or help from Hurricane Ivan back in September of 2004, that's how you kind of end up finding cat country. I'll never forget my first day. I arrived here. We went out on a Christmas parade. And I had a lady who clearly never knew me roll up and give me a hug and thank me for what we did in Ivan, and that was pretty special. That was Christmas of 2005, and I've never forgotten that whatever we did at that time was so important to her that she felt the need that she had to come and hug me. I had a chance to kind of revisit that with Hurricane Sally, literally 16 years to the day later this past September. And it's true, man. There is nothing like service in a hurricane. You're on the air around the clock for weeks on end, and it's, there's a lot of service and there's a lot of gratitude that comes with that.
Now, you're originally from the West Coast, so you get to Pensacola, and that's got to be like a whole new experience, right? Describe Pensacola for us. Paul and I have never been there, so what's it like? What's the town like? The demographic, the population?
Sure. Well, I actually grew up in Modesto, California, which is in the heart of the Central Valley. And that is, I think, market 124 right now. Pensacola is market 126. No question, best beach in the world. I'm going to go with Pensacola. Yeah, there's the white sandy beaches, man. Modesto Reservoir was great and all, but there is no question that we live in the most beautiful part of the world, and as far as the beach goes. It's also the oldest city in America, and I'm a history buff, so I fit right into this. The other side of that is, I guess in 32 years on the radio, I've only worked in 3 radio markets. I've been in Modesto, I've been in San Diego, and I've been here. And so I've had a lot of people ask that question. I bet it's really different than San Diego. The thing is, San Diego was a super military town, and that's how our country and salt life vibe was at KSON. Well, it's the exact same way it is here. It's just smaller. So we have 5 bases within driving distance of the radio station, or within the limits that were the home of the Blue Angels. So I didn't really find anything different about it, other than I wasn't sitting 2 hours in a commute on my way home. So that was really a positive thing. We have an amazing beach, man. You and I have talked when I'm on the way to what we do is something called Bands on the Beach. We have a wonderful opportunity to put regional acts up at the Pensacola Beach Ball, which has a stage. You're literally playing on Pensacola Beach, and we're about a week away from school being out and a bridge that was damaged in Sally reopening, and I bet we'll have 6,000 people there that first Tuesday night.
Wow. Describing the market, the size, you've got the beautiful beach there. You already said how one listener came up to you to give you a big hug in the early years in 2005. Describe the strength that local radio has in your market, the connection to these people.
I think that people just want to know you're proud of their community. They want you to be proud of your community. If you I've only heard it a handful of times in the places that I've been as somebody who's not proud of the area, but I would never want somebody to think I'm not proud of Pensacola. When we go to Nashville for CMA week, we're there to represent Pensacola in Nashville. I am there to make sure that Pensacola is well represented wherever we go. And Southern hospitality really is a thing, man. I am proud to be part of the tourism board for Visit Pensacola and kind of work on what makes people come into our community better. And in doing that, one of the things we find is that people tell us that our area, like the people here, are genuine and nice and welcoming. Never met a stranger, and that all of that is true. So doing radio here is really just kind of reflecting that part of your community. I hope that people would say that we're genuine and nice and respectful and love the community and support our community and work to make this community better in every aspect. And in doing so, I think that we have been able to find a community that loves us back. You know, I think that that's half the battle. Is, I mean, you know, how many times do you see something go south with, I don't know. I mean, the only thing that came to mind right now is the guy who ended up getting in the whole lawsuit with Taylor Swift, and I don't know why that came to mind, but I'm pretty sure like his community wasn't proud of him. You know what I mean? Like it just wasn't those things. You know, it was like one of those things. Like, well, dude, what are you doing? And so I would really hope that I hope that we find that our community is proud of what we do and that we make them proud.
Now, you've been involved in morning radio for a while. You're hosting there in Cat Country now, but you're also producing a show when you were still out on the West Coast. And I guess you held out on them for a little bit, telling them about your New Year's festivities.
Well, yeah. So Chuck and Jane were fantastic. I learned a lot from Chuck Buell. Chuck was a wonderful guy to kind of be a mentor, and it was fun. I recently got the opportunity to catch up with him. He was recently inducted into the Colorado Broadcasters Hall of Fame, and just happened to be able to catch dinner with him not but a couple of weeks ago. And that's one of the things we were talking about was, you know, some of the life experiences we got to share on the air, and he was one of the best at being able to do that. And so I got engaged on New Year's to my wife today, and he was kind enough to sort of let me tell that story.
Chuck Buell in the morning, holiday time behind us. So now we're getting to the years where we don't have, the time of the year we don't have a whole lot of holidays. I'm hoping everything went well with you, Brian, in Modesto.
Oh, yeah. Angie and I went up there, had a good Christmas up there, and then she came back down here, and I drove back down to meet her for New Year's, and we hung out at the house, a little quality time. It was raining. How cool was that? A little rain on New Year's. Well, it was for us. Anyway, we were sitting in the jacuzzi and got out and little fireworks. Brought some fireworks up from Modesto. Got engaged. It was pretty cool.
Hello.
Wait a minute.
Hello.
You got engaged?
Yep.
No way.
Yes, we did.
Didn't. How could you keep that from me?
Boy, it was hard all morning long.
I can't believe this. 4 hours. What did I ask you at 6 o'clock this morning? I said, did you get engaged? And you looked at me and said, I'll talk to you later. Unbelievable. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Right
Look,
at
he's all
midnight.
pink. Aww.
This is your offstage announcer.
That is so cool.
Jane has been waiting for this for I don't know how long.
I love it. I love it.
It was great. It was pouring rain out. Everybody
cool.
was lighting off fireworks on the street, and you know, we just it was just her and I spending a little quiet time. So I dropped down on my knee on the front porch, and then she just about fell over. So that was pretty cool. She looked at me, and then I ended up having to do it again like 10 minutes later because she was like, "I'm sorry, can you pinch me?" I'm like, okay. So, but she said yes. Fortunately, it took a while, but we're good to go.
Good.
It taught me a lot about how to do it as a storyteller, and Chuck and Jane were pretty fantastic. What's funny is both of them I still send voice work to from my side hustle, so I try to keep in touch with everybody. Once we're all in the same circle together, I have a set pattern of who I get to work with.
This is an Air Check Rewind, Season 2. Kirby Confer.
Kirby, there's somebody on the phone from Capitol Records. They need somebody to MC some gig. I don't know. And the guy said, this is Bill Turner from Capitol Records. We've got an act coming in. We're wondering, all the other DJs are busy, the guys who are the famous guys on our station. And, would you be available? And I said, yeah, I think I'm available. I said, fine. We'll send you a contract with $200 Would that be adequate? Yes, sir. That would be wonderful. Thank you. So I ran up to call the program director, a guy named Johnny Dark, and I said, Johnny, I got my first gig. He said, what is it? I don't know, Johnny. I got really excited. I'll have to call the guy back. I called Bill Turner back, and I said, what is it? He said, you haven't heard of him. He said, but they're big in England. They're called the Beatles.
Air Check, a podcast about radio's personality from Radio Personalities. Seasons 1 and 2 available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. You can also listen on your smart speaker. Just say, Alexa, play Air Check Podcast, or OK Google, play Air Check Podcast.
Somebody told me you got to interview Glen Campbell at some point.
Yeah, one of the ways that I got started, I started at an oldies country radio station in Modesto. I started at 860 AM stereo, California's country superstation.
Nice.
Well, in my head, I was like 14 or 15 years old, and I'm thinking the girls are going to love this. This is going to be awesome. Turns out none of the girls in my high school at the time were super into Hank Sr., but I had this job. And so it was great. I got a super fantastic foundation of country music. Like we played everything from Hank Sr. all the way up to, George Jones and Glen Campbell at the time. And so, I was a kid, right? So I got to KSON, and they ended up having an opening on Sunday nights for the Sunday Night Classics show. And I ended up hosting that show for about 9 of the 11 years I was in San Diego. And I loved it. And it ended up being a wonderful opportunity. I got to talk to Glen Campbell and BJ Thomas and bring Loretta Lynn on stage. And Kenny Rogers was on the show all the time. And, Glen Campbell has a wonderful story about how Alan Jackson kind of made it through him.
Well, Alan was driving a forklift in Noonan, Georgia, and his wife came up to me. She was a flight attendant for a Piedmont, I think, at the time. And she said, "Glenn, my husband sings and plays guitar good." And right. And I said, "He writes good?" He said, "Yeah, and he plays guitar, but, well, that remains to be seen." Anyway, I was kidding with her. I said, "Well, I'll be the judge of that. Send me some of his." And Bill McClay just happened to be with me, my road manager, and he gave her a card. And you know what? The turkey did turn out to be one of the best writers, probably in country music this past decade.
Yeah, fantastic.
When I heard Here in the Real World, they wrote that thing in Country Music Magazine, but that wasn't true at all. Now, what I said, we were trying to get him a deal, a record deal. And I told him, I said, "Boy, if we don't get you a deal in the next month or so," I said, "you're going to hear Glen Campbell singing Here in the Real World." And you know what? It would have been a hit.
That's right. It was a great song.
I could have done that and put it out under the name of Clarence Thudpucker, and it would have probably been a hit. That's how strongly I felt about that song.
I got 9 minutes with Glen Campbell. You know what I mean? Like I look back at the time, I don't even know if I appreciated it as much when it happened, but man, they gave me 9 minutes with Glen Campbell. That was cool.
How cool was he?
Oh, he was so nice. You never know what you're going to get. And so, having Glenn tell me fun stories about meeting Alan Jackson. And obviously, man, I was a rookie when I was doing this interview. It was, I probably was not the finest interview he had ever had. But he was nice to me, and ultimately, having him on the air was one of the things that kind of helped coach me toward how to do better interviews with artists over the years.
Let's talk about the Cat Pack Morning Show.
Plays a lot of music.
Real, down to earth.
Makes me laugh in the morning.
You're waking up in Cat Country.
Tell us about the show.
Well, the Cat Pack Morning Show really is about having fun and reflecting our community. Man, I am in for having listeners on at every opportunity. So if you call us, you're kind of part of the team. It's kind of interesting. The more texting has become popular, the less phone calls it is. So sometimes you kind of have to seed that as a morning guy. You have to be like, dude, you have to call me and tell me the story. Like, I need you to call this in. But I think that has, sort of made the show more accessible. I don't believe in, setting up jokes for the day. I never start the show going, "Oh my gosh, I want to be funny." I do want to be fun. And funny comes with fun. So, we're going through a morning show change. My co-host just recently retired. So I am sort of on the hunt, and I'll tell you what, I forgot what it's like. It's literally like dating. Like I haven't, you know what I mean? Like I never had to deal with the apps. I met my wife. We've been together for decades, and kind of jumping back into the market of finding somebody that you have chemistry with is a trip. I'll know it when I find it. And so, and that's kind of the vibe I guess I would go with for the show. I mean, it's funny. My old morning show partner, my original morning show partner, is actually sitting in and filling in for me for now while we're in the hunt for it, which is fun because that's a whole different vibe for the show.
Has anybody pitched the husband and wife team yet?
My wife and I actually did the show for a year and probably would have kept doing it if we did not have a son who was in 4th and 5th grade at the time and was kind of adamant that mom still be able to drive him to work or drive him to school, rather. We had a great time, man. We really did have a great time. My wife's a great co-host. To this day will come and jump in once in a while. She went back to work and kind of is the branch manager for a mortgage company now. So I now have to ask on like pins and needles and be like, do you think that you could come in for just, even if it was like 6:30 to 8:30? Do you? So, but she's, we do the show at home all the time. So, we had a good natural talent, and she had a way of being able to correct my attitude that other partners wouldn't be able to have. So yeah, that's something that we have considered, and I don't know that it'll happen just yet, but yeah, she's wonderful at it. Has done the show before.
Very cool. Now, you've injected some different people into your show. I've read you've had Dustin Lynch on your show do Pigskin Picks.
Oh yeah, man. We, one of the things we do in the fall, we do college football picks. That's actually a great reason to have an artist on every week. One of my favorites is Trisha Yearwood, who is, she is hardcore for the University of Georgia. So she will tell you all about her Bulldogs and why they're going to win. But everything from, we've had Dustin Lynch, Justin Moore's fantastic. If you want a Razorback fan to come on and call the Hogs, and in my head, Justin Moore carries a clipboard around with plays and will send them in if he doesn't like how things are going during the game.
And we are going to do college football picks, and it's with Dustin Lynch.
Gators all the way, no doubt.
How about this, Boston College versus FSU? Is there any shot?
Oh gosh, I think FSU is going to pull that one out. Actually,
you do?
Yep.
Are you voting with your heart, or you're voting with your gut? If you were voting for your heart, you'd be like, no, they would.
I hate FSU.
Brent and Candy, the Cat Pack Morning Show. Cat Country 98.7.
In the South, college football is professional football. It really is. I promise you, those guys are on buses, sitting outside, watching with their teammates. And Saturday in the South is really about football, and it's great to get those guys to come on there. One of my favorite stories, Chase Rice, bless his heart, man. We have a local team in Pensacola, University of West Florida Argonauts. We are the NCAA Division II national champions right now.
Congratulations.
Well, in the fourth year of existence. Now, they're technically the 2019 national champions, but since they didn't play last year, right? You just keep going. You're still the champions until somebody else wins it. But the shtick has always been, we will go all the way through college picks, and then we'll ask you who's going to beat the University of West, University of West Florida and whoever they're playing. And the answer is always University of West Florida is going to win. Go Argos. And man, at the time, Chase Rice couldn't. He was like, man, I don't know. They're just a little too new. It was like, no. Well, here's the thing. We went on. He made that pick like in November as they started the playoff run. When they became champions, like we were fortunate enough to have him on the air the following year. And he did a whole mea culpa about apologizing for not picking our Argos. And it became a fantastic shtick. And to this day, we have Chase Rice, in sweepers supporting the University of West Florida. So
something else that sets your show apart. I was listening recently. Mm-hmm. The Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, man. We do a pledge every day at 7:00 or the national anthem.
Every single day that I'm in my car driving to work and someone on your beautiful radio station says the Pledge of Allegiance, my hand goes over my heart and I say it right along with them.
And that's a really great reason to be out in the community, too. So every time you go visit a classroom, everyone wants to hear themselves on the air. So, easy peasy. Just record somebody doing the pledge. We do it with scout troops all the time. We do civic organizations, any Rotary Club that wants to submit, any business that wants to submit.
It really is a family community type of music format, the country and radio and what you're doing.
Well, it is, man. I think one of the things that makes that appealing is to, as a radio guy, the allure is still there, man. People want to hear themselves on the air. All the better if they can be proud Americans, and I think that's pretty great too. And it's always a good reason to be able to talk about somebody, because we always try to announce who was doing the pledge, and I try to fit that into almost an opportunity to, especially if it's a new pledge, brag on the local organization for whatever that is. It gives me a nice piece to highlight.
And the artists, they came up as listeners, and they still want to be engaged with radio. You mentioned Dan and Shay earlier. You get texts from one of those guys, right?
Yeah, Dan is the best at texting I have ever. And he must have a Rolodex somewhere, and it just be like, hey man, I just want to say thanks. I mean, you just don't think about it. But nice guy, and I am always impressed at the amount of time that guy puts into relationship management. I mean, I like him a lot. He's a great guy, and I have never ever found anybody that quite really works like that. I mean, Jimmy Allen's great at it too. Jimmy just out of the blue, hey man, how's it going? How you doing, dude? You know, and that makes you invest in their career as well, and it makes them seem approachable, and they are approachable. You have to be really careful though, because it's just so tempting to be like, hey man, can I get you to just cut a quick drop or whatever? And I never want to do that. Like, I always want to go through the right channel. Never want to take advantage of the guy who texted me. But I do have to say, man, yeah, Dan and Shay, clearly world leaders in texting. I don't know how many of those guys text in a day or in an hour, but if it's something going on, if you just added their song, you can expect it, and that's pretty great management.
Talk a little bit about the Cat Country match game, and how did a round of golf come out of that?
Sure. Yeah. So COVID was terrible. It meant you couldn't do a whole lot of stuff. And we always look for artist experiences. Like, I always want to give somebody something they couldn't otherwise do without winning the experience. Can't pay for it. Really got to be able to win it. And we usually do a game called Last Prize Standing, which is an awful lot of fun, big dreamer kind of prize. So we kind of reversed it so that we could try to honestly bring in, we need to bring in some people who were advertisers and create something out of that would not only be some revenue for us, but obviously give a good way for people to find out about businesses. And so this happened last fall, but our good friends at Big Machine allowed Riley Green to do a round of golf. And the deal was going to be that Riley would come to town and play a round of golf. This happened to have to be in the spring. And we did the game in October, but this had to be paid off in March. And whoever won this round, would be able to bring a friend, and I would be Riley's plus one, and we'd go out and play at Scenic Hills Country Club. And man, it was a lot of fun. Like, he rolled up ready to play. It was awesome. Got off the plane, took an Uber over. I took it as a great compliment that his manager did not come with him. So they kind of let me, drive Riley around in the cart. And I again, we had a blast. We got to do something with listeners that they'll never forget. Our listener's friend was 3 Jaeger bombs in by the 3rd hole. And he was a good sport, because by the 17th hole, she was like running up with FaceTime for her friend and her husband and her kids. And he was a trooper, man. So, but if you're looking for somebody in your scramble, get Riley Green. That dude was bombing at 300 yards. We started playing the Riley Green scramble. We were all terrible. Like, no one will ever want to pick me for their golf game unless you're looking for just a putting specialist or maybe a chipper. So, and the ladies we were playing with were gracious enough to realize they were just there for the Riley Green. So he would bomb it. We'd drive out to wherever he hit it to. Everybody would take a shot trying to get their ball closer to the hole. Then Riley would sink it, and we'd go to the next hole. But it was fun. It was an awesome 4 hours for them. He was talking about the kind of the behind the scenes of the music business and tours he was going on and how that decisions get made. And I mean, for them, it was it was fascinating for me. I was like, this is amazing, for a guy who's getting his first headlining tour. In fact, this Friday night, he is headlining a place we talked about on that golf trip. Okay. He found out about it while we were on there, got added to his calendar. And so he's playing the Wharf on Friday night. I'm looking forward to, I told him at the time I was so embarrassed with my golf game. I was like, we'll never speak of this in an interview, knowing full well we would definitely speak of this in an interview every time for the rest of his career. So
Air Check, some of radio's greatest stories from some of radio's greatest. Air Check Season 2 includes episodes with Danny Bonaducci, Kid Chris, Debbie Calton, Kirby Confer, Lori Lewis, and Fred Jacobs. Air Check Seasons 1, 2, and 3. Available now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, and Spotify. You can also tell your smart speaker to play Air Check Podcast.
We've been talking about awards. I guess should remind people that are listening to this, you're the morning radio host on this radio station, and I'm just going to use some ballpark hours here. So you probably get up at least 4 o'clock in the morning. You come in, you do the morning show until, let's say, about 10 o'clock in the morning. And then you're also operating the radio station, overseeing the other DJs and making sure the right music is on the air, and talking with salespeople and dealing with different promotions that are coming up and getting involved in the community. It takes a couple minutes out of your day. 2021, you just got nominated for another award, the Service to America Award. Talk about that.
So the Service to America Award is a National Association of Broadcasters award. What we were nominated for was specifically the Mission Restore Hope, our coverage of Hurricane Sally, and about 2 weeks after that, a major fund drive we did alongside our TV partners at WEAR TV.
This year, our community has certainly been tested, perhaps like never before. Businesses trying to stay alive and tough decisions being made while the world fights a pandemic. Now, many are dealing with significant personal losses from Hurricane Sally. Channel 3's Rebecca Castor shows us how our community has chosen to rely on hope.
Oftentimes, the storms that hit us the most are the ones that are unexpected. I just believe that with the community efforts and what's going on now, that we can look forward to great restoration.
Neighbors helping neighbors, restaurants feeding first responders, and small acts of kindness going a long way.
We raised about $300,000 for it. And, as I said, we being locally owned, locally operated, and our mission statement's pretty specific. We're on the air around the clock. In fact, we drop music during a crisis. And so, really, we had what we would consider record time for power to come back on in our area. They did it in about 7 days. Pretty phenomenal. Same, the Southern Power and Gulf Power teams that did Hurricane Michael in Panama City in record time. Kudos to the linemen. And that's an interesting part of where I live, by the way. Just on a total side note, we celebrate the linemen in our area like nobody's business. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you're a lineman, you are the greatest. You go without power for a little while, and you're like, those guys, buy them a burger and anything they want to drink. But yeah, so that's what the Service to America Award is about, and it is all genre, right? So it's all radio stations. In this case, it happens to be by market size. But your goal is to, how did you serve America? We have been privileged to win 2 in our history. In 2008, my morning show partner had gone to Iraq to broadcast live from there for Thanksgiving for 3 years in a row.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. Dana Cervantes is now the president of the USO in the area, or head of the USO in the entire region. She left the morning show to kind of take that over, and she's amazing. Like I said earlier, she comes in and sits in with me, but it's like, hey, don't you want to come in every day? She's like, not really. I'm running the USO. But her going to Iraq was a big deal. We also were privileged to win it in 2017. We created something called Spring Jam, which is a legacy concert for us now. But we created a concert that ultimately 100% of the proceeds would go to Santa Rosa Kids House to help, child folks that, kids that are abused, of course. And we kind of partnered up with, Santa Rosa County. And
I'm Lon Helton, CEO of Country Air Check and host of Westwood One's Country Countdown USA. I'm honored to be part of Cat Country's On Air family as well. When WYCT Cat Country learned about the mission of the Santa Rosa Kids House in the Florida Panhandle, they knew they wanted to help. Santa Rosa, which opened in 2004, which by the way is the same year that Cat Country launched, offers specialized sexual abuse therapy to child victims and their families. While Cat Country has run public service announcements and hosted events for Santa Rosa since it opened, last year they felt called upon to do more. Their answer was an annual Spring Jam featuring live music for all ages. Cat Country organized and promoted the event and donated more than 1,000 volunteer hours, with the inaugural Spring Jam raising nearly $15,000 and plans to hold the event each year. WYCT Cat Country is making an incredible impact on their community. We are proud to honor them here tonight.
The guy who's the former sheriff of Santa Rosa County is now the head of the board of Santa Rosa Kids House, and I always liked the idea of doing a concert on the beach, and I was shocked to find that the National Association of Broadcasters voted that for a Service of America award. It was quite the honor. And then, so, for this one, I'm very pleased with that. And again, it's one of those things where you kind of reflect your community, and I'm very very proud of what we did during Hurricane Sally, and so would certainly say our wonderful team effort and the team effort of our TV partners in News Radio, who is our sister station. Certainly, I'm so pleased. They just moved the needle so amazingly, and they were able to. I think they ended up putting that $300,000 through the United Way of West Florida went towards something like, I want to say it was 1,700 roofs, because that's what it did. It would all went to lumber and to helping, all these groups will come in from out of town and help you with your tarping or whatever, and all went to supplies for lower income homes. It was pretty great.
Hey y'all, it's Chris and Preston, and we're Low Cash, inviting you to Cat Country 98.7's Spring Jam 2020 on the beach behind Juana's Pagodas and Sailor's Grill in Navarre.
Spring Jam, presented by Gulf Winds Credit Union, is the ultimate spring break party starring Low Cash. Feels like a party. With American Idol's Gabby Barrett.
Hey guys, it's Gabby Barrett. I can't wait to see you at Spring Jam.
And Colby Calais' new group, Gone West. Proceeds benefit Santa Rosa Kids House. $10 tickets are on sale now.
With Low Cash, we're going to be there. Headlining on the beach. The beach is just the beginning. Woo! Low Cash is the ending.
Spring Jam is made possible thanks to the Santa Rosa Tourist Development Council, Santa Rosa Medical Center, Blue Chair Bay Rum, and Hill Kelly.
Get your tickets now at catcountry987.com.
2017, our headliner was Granger Smith. 2018, we had, 2018 is when we did the concert with Granger Smith. 2019, we had Michael Ray. The concert we have postponed for 2 years due to quarantine and is returning now will be Low Cash, Ingrid Andress, probably going to have something like Runaway June in the opening act slot. And I always usually try to take, one of the local talent that went to American Idol or The Voice or something and perform there and have them perform. Jordan Chase, in this case, is going to be our very opening act and do the national anthem. So,
great idea. How many people can you put on the beach, and what do you charge per person to go to an event like that?
Man, I'm glad you asked. My feeling is always one of the things that if you can make your radio station be a radio station that somebody will say, man, there was this station when I lived in Pensacola, or there was this station when I was a kid. If you can be that station, then you're going to win, because you want people to remember the experience. And so the pricing for what we do for a concert in general admission is $10.
Wow.
I want it to be somebody's first concert. Like, I want to be your first concert. If you were 8 years old standing in the front row holding up the little Bieber hearts to Granger Smith, got a little weird when it was an 8-year-old holding it up to Earl Dibbles Jr., but he has an alternate character. But, man, I want that kid. I want that kid to never forget their first concert was my radio station's concert. They'll always, we're always in yellow. I want them to remember the station in yellow that took good care of them. Do we offer experiences? We do. It's always a ways to raise some additional funds. But like for Miracle on Palafox, we'll have this coming up in November. It's a similar show. It's not on a beach. It's in it's in the Sanger Theater. But I will sell $100 a pop for the front row, and then you get to go meet the artist as well. And that's how we'll raise some extra cash out of that. Spring Jam's kind of the same. We have a VIP area where you get to meet the artist. We put 100 people in there, and I have a meet and greet down to where I can do the entire meet and greet, all 4 artists that are on a show, in less than 25 minutes for 125 people.
Not your first rodeo.
No, we got it down like a science, man. You got it. We do the meet and greets all happen at the same time. Everybody goes to a station. Click, 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 click. That's how we move people through. Everybody gets a photo, gets to say hi, and they get something cool out of it. So
because I've got ADD, how many people have you had at the beach concerts?
3,000. We say 3,000. I think the most we've ever actually had check in through the door was about 2,900 for Michael Ray. Okay. And we that was the second year of the show. I think that we were right before we were a week shy of quarantine hitting for what would have been the third Spring Jam, and we'd already sold about 2,100 tickets. And usually, on a $10 show on spring break, you kind of sell out right there at the end. So I would have had no doubt we'd have put 3,000 people into the venue after that. So
This is an Air Check Rewind. Season 1, Danny Bonaducci.
So I got him in the car, and we started going fairly fast, not as fast as I could, but pretty fast. And he kept saying things like, see? I mean, he looked scared. He goes, see, I'm not screaming. We come around the last loop, and there's some lady pushing a baby carriage, which I then hit. He starts flipping out, screaming, and he's out of his mind. At the time, it was my wife with a doll in the carriage.
Air Check, a podcast about radio's personality from Radio Personalities. Seasons 1 and 2 available now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. You can also listen on your smart speaker. Just say, Alexa, play Air Check Podcast, or OK Google, play Air Check Podcast.
PACE, P-A-C-E, is the acronym for Pensacola Area Commitment to Excellence. You are the 2020 Community Leader of the Year from PACE. Tell us about that.
You know, I was very gracious to be nominated by possibly Dave and Mary, our station owners. I'm really sure who did the nomination for it, but what a thrill that is. You know, I mean, so when I got into radio, it was not the imagination that my parents had that I would, you know, they wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor or pretty much anything else. They did not grasp why I would want to be in radio at 14 or 15 years old. And I'm pretty sure they were probably, you know, mortified at the time when I was like, I'm going to work midnight to 8 a.m. Saturday night into Sunday morning. It's going to be awesome. And, you know, so I have credited any kind of good thing that's ever happening to my parents letting me do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't have to. At the time I had to fill out a work permit. My mom had to agree to let me be okay with it. And I'm pretty sure she was not actually okay with it. You know, so again, it was one of those things where to be nominated as the community leader of the year, let alone to take a trophy and you know, have something to be proud of on the mantle, really is about thanking my family for letting me be able to do that. My wife and I are really good at, you know, she's a really good facilitator of our family, and I'm a really good, I think, facilitator of what this job is. I couldn't do it without that. And so, more importantly, I'm pretty grateful that my parents had the opportunity to see that, not once, but twice. I'd been fortunate enough to be the business leader of the year almost a decade ago. And, you know, for me, it was really about making sure my mom and dad knew I was very much, it was just a different, you know, work path than they imagined it would be, but I wanted them to be proud of me. And I have no doubt that they are and were and still will be today. But yeah, I mean, you know, when I kind of look at that kind of an accolade, I would definitely credit my parents for letting me do it and believing that it would be okay. And then using that as an example of why it was okay.
For anybody that's listening to this episode, they might be thinking, geez, what else has this guy done? And a couple of things that I guess lend towards receiving that Community Leader Award of PACE was your involvement with the MANA organization there. Tell us a little bit about that. There's something called the MANA Hat, and there's also something called Fill the Mayflower.
So MANA Food Pantry is our local nonprofit food pantry. It is not affiliated with any government agency or anything else. It is a truly independent pantry. MANA had been, at this point, it's been around for about 35 years, but I got involved with the board when I first moved to Pensacola. In fact, in the fall of 2006, they had a, you know, Feed $5 campaign. They were trying to raise, you know, some funds, and I was tasked at the time with coming up with something to do that we could, you know, support MANA with. And so we happened to be at the Pensacola Interstate Fair. We always seemed to have a hat vendor across from our booth. The hat vendor gave me a straw hat. I had Little Texas and Confederate Railroad sign it. Later, after the Pensacola Interstate Fair, I think Jason Aldean and Toby Keith came through. And then I auctioned that straw hat off for about $400. And we donated it to MANA. And that was the beginning of the MANA hat. And then we got local, like the Boot Barn, or the Boot Store, rather, you know, donates a hat every year, and they go through and let us, we sign this George Strait Resist All hat. And I'm on my 14th hat now. So I'm on the same hat as last year, because we only had 2 artists on it in the entire year. So it's going to be a leftover. But over that time, we've raised $25,000 in meals for Manna over the course of the hats, and some have gone for as much as $2,300. I have the 2008 and 2011 hats are both unique. They were both signed back to me to be given to other charitable functions and then re-auctioned off. Both of those hats stick out in that they've raised over somewhere around $7,000 a piece in other funds for other organizations as well. They were generously put back into the stream, if you will. But when I got involved with Manna, somebody said, hey, you should take a bigger role in that. And I thought, perfect, I'd love to. So I got invited to be on the board in 2007 and joined the board in 2008, and then became the president of the board in 2011, and I'm still on the board today. So in fact, they actually changed, I don't know that they did it necessarily for me, but they actually changed the bylaws so that we could, those of us who are on the board and wanted to stay can serve up to 3 consecutive terms back to back to back. And a term is 3 years. Well, I came off after 2 years, took a year off, was invited to be back on. So I'm in the middle of my second go rounds, end of my second term, about to go into my third term on the board.
Okay. With the artists that have been signing the hats, I mean, it's obviously made an impact in your local community there, but I mean, the artists, they do some touring around the country, they play all over the place, they come back to Pensacola and they feel like, didn't I sign a hat here?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Kenny Chesney, who is the guy who how many times I signed this hat? And he is a 7-time signer. So I've got a couple of 7-time signers now. So that's been pretty great. And it's, hey man, I'll take it. If you remember that it's the big guy in yellow with a big cowboy hat coming at you all the time, I'll take that as a memory pick any day. But Kenny, Eric Church has been on that hat. I mean, 2019 was crazy. We had 47 names on the hat.
Man.
And we are, I don't know how it is where you are, but man, the concerts are hitting starting on Friday night. We are back in business. We have 14 major concerts over the summer.
Wow. That's between now and Labor Day?
Actually, well, it's technically between now and October 9th. Brooks and Dunn closes out the wharf on October 9th. But
you get an extended summer in Pensacola that us here in Philadelphia, we don't get.
Yeah. The hat will be making the tours. And it'll be great. I mean, I'm sure looking forward to having people back in town, and obviously it's kind of neat when somebody says, hey, tell me about that hat, or how many times have I signed it.
I mentioned a little bit ago about the Phil the Mayflower promotion. What's that all about?
Yeah, so Phil the Mayflower is pretty neat. My buddy Jay Bradshaw, we both moved to Pensacola at about the same time and kind of met through an organization called Leadership Pensacola, and spent a lot of time kind of dreaming about what we could do. He's a mover. He runs a moving company, a couple moving companies actually. And he kind of brought the idea. He said, what if I take this Mayflower moving van that we have and we fill it up with food from Manna Food Pantries? And that's how Phil the Mayflower was born.
Brent Lane, this has been a phenomenal day already. 5:01 this morning, vehicles were rolling in.
Man, it's true. We had one of the busiest mornings I can think of to start with, and we're so grateful. So please, please, please don't let it stop right now. We're off to a great roll. Last year we were actually down a little bit in Phil the Mayflower, so to see it come back this year for the 10th year, this is amazing.
And we set some big, hairy, audacious goal. The first year we wanted to raise 50,000 pounds of food, and we raised 12. And then the second year we raised 23,000 pounds of food, and then the third year is when it hit and we raised about 140,000 pounds of food. On the third year we had to have 3 full trucks. So, and it was pretty great. It's canned goods and cereal and everything, and it is the largest solid food drive of the year for Manna Food Pantries, and it happens the week of Thanksgiving. Used to be a 3-day event. Now it's a 2-day event, and it usually puts Manna on track for food distribution between Thanksgiving and all the way to about the Super Bowl. Super Bowl, there ends up being another event. So
that is a tight-knit community to do that in 2 days.
Yeah, man. We set up at the mall, and cars start piling through, and we've got it to where businesses and organizations start taking up challenges and issuing challenges to other businesses, and we broadcast live from there the whole time, do the morning show from there. We have somebody live out there, around the clock. Our TV partners, WEAR, ABC 3, are usually there with us. And Sue Strawn is what a mentor, man. This is an amazing woman who has been in the market for 46 years. Started in the 70s on the station, and I've learned a lot from her in terms of success through service, which is why I mention her, because I would be remiss if I did not say that partnership, and we have been very lucky to work together on a lot of different projects, but her coming and helping out with this Fill the Mayflower event is significant to its success as well. And of course, Coastal Moving and Storage puts an amazing amount of time and resources into it, and obviously their trucks the week of Thanksgiving. And so we've been very lucky. We've raised a lot of dollars over the years for it, which has gone into food service, and certainly proud of what Mana does for this community. And Mana's had some struggles too. We got flooded out in 2014. The whole pantry got flooded. We had to move to an entire new location. At the time, my buddy Jay was the president of the board. So bless his heart, man, 2 years in a row trying to work on how to get the food pantry back in action, and did a wonderful job. But it's been fun to watch it not just grow, but people take after it as their own, and the best part, man, the absolute best part is when somebody will come up to the truck and be like, I'm dropping off a bag. I needed these groceries 2 years ago. I used the service. Today's my day to give back.
Wow, that is cool.
That'll get you right in the feels, man.
So my scorecard, because I haven't been keeping track of everything, but the basic stuff, you're the program director, you're the morning host, you're running things through the radio station all day long. You're on the board of directors for Mana, as well as some other things you mentioned along the way. I feel guilty asking you about a spare time hobby. Do you have a hobby?
I love photography, man. And I've always loved photography. Actually, I used to have a dark room and used to do it, back when it was the traditional thing. I feel like whatever I'm doing, I can, complement the photography. I'll take pictures with everything from an iPhone to full on SLR, and, I like sunset photography is kind of my jam. I'd recently got into a drone. That's a lot of fun. Been trying to figure out how not to crash it, so that's pretty great. Somebody gave me a great piece of advice on droning. Start with the toy. Once you can fly the toy, then you buy the cheapest, DJI drone you can get, which on Prime Day is about $399. Then you go bigger, because you do not want to end up sending it out into the ocean and lose it forever.
Well, Brent, I'm a hobbyist in photography myself. Not as much as I used to. Don't have the time. But how much time do you actually have in a day or a week to be able to enjoy your photography?
Last year, I had a lot of time. Right now, we're pretty busy. Man, I think you got to build some time into what you do. I've gotten to the part where my wife and I try to make sure we're taking the dog around the block at night, and we got to have some downtime and do our thing. But I love to read. I am an avid consumer of historical books. At any given time, I'm usually reading a book and going through an audiobook all at the same time. I find that's particularly World War II is kind of my jam. In fact, pro tip, if you are looking for an excellent leadership book, the memoirs of Dick Winters, called Beyond Band of Brothers, really fantastic. So if you like Band of Brothers in the movie, or in the the HBO show, in the Stephen Ambrose book, read the memoirs of Dick Winters, who's the guy he was the commander of Easy Company in that. So he did a whole piece on leadership at the end. It's amazing. But as far as time goes, I think you just kind of got to roll with the punches. One thing that I am particularly very much have to do is I have to have a vacation coming up. I can grind as much as necessary as long as I know I've got somewhere to go in about 6 months. We always try to have a vacation plan 6 months out.
Now, let me ask another silly question. You live in Pensacola. You're on the beach. Where do you go for vacation?
In the winter, I like to ski. So we usually hit Tahoe, and I've got family in California still, and so does my wife. So we like to go spend a week in Tahoe. This year, due to the prices of plane tickets, I got the most number of days skiing in since I was 19. So hit Breckenridge twice, and that was a lot of fun. And again, my wife likes to remind me that we are not necessarily like 19-year-old kids struggling to try to make it through on minimum wage. So maybe we could try to not go on the cheap all the time when we go on those trips. because I'm still very like, oh man, we can't pay for that. We also do. We found this place about 11 years ago. It's Lake Martin. It's in the middle of Alabama. Man, I love it, man. I love the lake life. We go up for a week, and what I usually do is I usually go up the week leading into Labor Day, so that we come back on Labor Day. But that is my 1 week of downtime before going into a ratings period here, because we usually start, it starts usually the following week. So I thoroughly enjoy having a pontoon boat and rolling around to Chimney Rock and bebopping around the lake and sitting on the dock and fishing. And that is a wonderful time, downtime if we're going to go somewhere. Also like the Smoky Mountains.
Rich and I like to ask 5 questions as we get down to the end of the interview. Talk about your best brush with fame. We like to call it the Spinal Tap moment.
Oh, man. My best brush with fame. I would have to say, I'm going to give you a different answer. So because of the business we're in, we get to meet a lot of people that are famous for whatever we do. Man, I'll tell you what, I am a nerd for the Blue Angels.
Is that right?
You know what I mean? Like we live in a place where we are fortunate to have some access to them, and I was privileged enough to be asked to fly as a spectator with the Blues in 2008. And I'm such a naval flight aviation geek that it's like I just want to sit down and be like, so you're the boss, and tell me about how how it works, and tell me about the barrel rolls, and you know what I mean? Like I'm such a nerd for that stuff that is probably my biggest brush with fame, is whenever those guys are around. And one of the guys who is back on the team right now is a guy named Ben Walborn. And, wow, man, this must have been 2012 or 13, but he is the guy who raced the Corvette. They did a redo of the photo this year, but they painted a Corvette in Blue Angel colors, and then they had the Blues fly across. And Ben at the time was a single guy, new, I think a lieutenant, and so I was on the air with my former morning show partner a couple days ago and got a text from him. Hey man, I'm back listening to you guys. It's like old times. And we were like, it was pretty cool. So that was pretty neat.
Up in the plane, did they get you sick?
I did not want to ruin my flight by throwing up. Major Miller was the guy who flew me, who is now Colonel Miller. And what a cool guy. He was a Marine pilot, took the time to be very, very nice. Nobody tries to get you sick. That's not what they want, right? They want you to get off the plane and talk about why. They want me to be able to say how cool this experience is, in the hopes that I'm going to talk to some 10-year-old who, oh my God, Dad, I want to fly the Blues or whatever, And so that's never the case. In fact, if you ask anybody who's ever flown, I would imagine even Kelly Clarkson, although Kelly Clarkson was the person that flew before me and allegedly got really sick. The cockpit was clean when I got there. But anyway, they would tell you that that's not what they're going to do. They're going to tell you everything they're going to do. They're going to walk you through the entire flight experience. They're going to have you do the Hick maneuver, and I have multiple demonstrations of where I do it right and where I do it wrong. And when you do it wrong, you pass out. So nobody got me sick, but I did pass out a couple of times. I edited carefully around that video. Hey, and this is the part where I'm green out.
Tell me something that your listeners or coworkers don't know about you.
Man, I was thinking about that question. My grandfather was involved in soft ice cream back in the day. The legend has it that he invented soft ice cream with 3 other partners and sold it to Foster's Freeze. What else? This day and age, most people don't realize that my first real national TV experience was on 60 Minutes playing a Dixie Chicks record here in Pensacola in spring of 2006 when they were on their comeback tour. So I ended up, they sent a whole TV crew to come out to our station and filmed me for 6 seconds playing the song. And what most people don't realize is the caller who's like, I don't think that's appropriate, was the setup was my wife, who was asked, we were getting all these calls, and some of them were really mean. Like you couldn't air it on 60 Minutes. So I needed somebody to basically paraphrase all of that in a way that would not get us, in trouble. So that ended up being my wife.
So you talked a little bit about your parents earlier, lawyer, doctor, but you went into radio. How are they with it at this point?
I think they're good now. I think, I think my parents, it was funny, when I was growing up, I was, like I said, 14 or 15 when I was on the air, and Confederate Railroad had a song called Trashy Women. And so funny story, my dad and my uncle, who are oddly enough born on the same day, 3 years apart, convinced my grandmother to call and put a request in on that radio station for Trashy Women by the Confederate Railroad. Somewhere, man, I was trying to find it for this interview. I somewhere have my grandmother saying, would you, doing that request? And I had kept it as a sweeper. And I honestly am sort of wondering if I haven't lost it, because I went through boxes of stuff to try to find it. But, I think my grandmother was a big believer, and my parents, I think it's not that they didn't believe, it's that they just weren't familiar with it. Would this be something that would end up, could you raise a family on that? And so, I've done a lot of stuff in between this, or while being on the air. Some of the time I was part-time. I taught at San Diego State University in an effort to make them proud. I mean, my mom was so upset when I got into the business that, or when I got on the air when I was in high school, that she was, crying in the kitchen, "You're never going to finish school." Well, not only did I finish school, I went on to get a master's degree. And, I did that a lot because I was motivated to prove to them that no matter what I did, I would be okay. And I wanted them to be proud of me. And, it was really rewarding for a lot of reasons, no matter the motivation for why to do it. But I think if somebody told me today, did you need a master's degree? I probably don't need a master's degree to be on the radio, but I use it every day in some sort of discipline in some way or other. I find that to be a benefit every day. But my grandmother got to hear, we won an ACM in 2008. My morning show partner and I at the time were the ACM personalities of the year. And so you had mentioned earlier that something those award shows do is they recognize country radio. Well, I got to do with Dana the voiceover for a part of that show. And so my grandmother got to hear that before she passed. And so, everybody in the home got to be, that's my baby.
I love asking this question to our guest here on Air Check, Brent. Radio has seen so much advancement in technology over its 100 years, more so in the last 20, 25, it seems anyway. But for you personally, is there a form of technology that you could do without?
Oh, man. Not really. I'd say I'm an early adopter, man. I'm pretty good with the tech. I would say that I'm pretty competent with just about all of it, man. It's funny. I'm not really scared of it. I was the first guy of my friend group to buy a DVD player. Excuse me. So inadvertently I bought the $550 Toshiba, because there are only two different kinds when they came out. And I bought all 7 of the DVDs that came out right when they came out with it. It's the only reason I've ever watched Interview with a Vampire, because that was one of the 7. But I would say I'm pretty progressive. I mean, I'll take some credit for it. I helped change the way we broadcast remotes for the radio station. I mean, as soon as I was pretty diehard about Verizon, if you'll recall back when the iPhones hit, they were an AT&T only technology. Mm-hmm. And I was holding out for it because we didn't have a lot of great coverage here for AT&T at the time. And once the iPhone hit, and I was able to show it off in terms of the technology that I thought it could do, we stopped bringing all the equipment. We had just about the entire team made the switch to being able to do it with an iPhone, and that quality was exceptional right out the gate. So we made a big change starting in about 2010 from going from the Comrexes and the Martys to computers and recorders, to dropping all of that stuff and just being ready to rock with the phone.
Last question. Radio in the future, the next 10 to 20 years, where do you see it?
I think that there is no substitute for local broadcasting. What happens in between the songs matters. And I think that anybody that comes at us with a national or a broadcaster that's not here, I think I can beat. because you can't be if you can't be local, then I can beat you. There will be a lot of discussions in terms of businesses and business models about whether or not you can control the dollar, so to speak, and how to be efficient in this. But man, there is a desire for what people get information-wise and how they are able to achieve it in a timely manner. And local broadcasting, I think, has an opportunity to win. You do have to be good. You can't just be, a terrible broadcaster. That's the thing. It's like, you try to coach new people on weekends, now who want to do it, and they don't even know they want to do it. They're not even really sure what they're doing because in their head they got into a class and they wanted to be podcasters. So let me help you with how you could be better at this. And so I think that where we're at in 10 or 20 years really is going to come down to possibly one of two things. One, we're going to have some bigger companies divest themselves of radio stations, thus reopening more of a local model all over again. So that's one way that's going to happen. Or two, we are going to continue to see a consolidation. And I just don't think we can do that. I think there's too much debt in the marketplace and the businesses. I think you're going to see groups split off again. And I think you're going to see a return to that local concept. And man, you know what? We find that people still like getting their stuff for free. And I'm really trying to find a way to be symbiotic with spots. Like our competition will do like 22 spots in an hour. We do a maximum of 9. You know what I mean? That's the cap. Like, we're sold out at 9 spots an hour because it just, makes no sense to be so off-putting to people that they never want to listen to you. And we, like I said, we believe in super serving. So we super serve Escambia and Santa Rosa County, Florida, and Baldwin County, Alabama. And, that's our focus of influence. And if we can be your local station, then I feel like we win. And that has proven to be true. Do I think this model sustains for the next 10 or 20 years? Yeah, man, I do. I think we can do that. I do think that as an industry, we really have to find our next group of broadcasters. I'm fortunate to work with a guy named Davis Allen, who is in mid-20s. Found him in a broadcasting class. He's already the program director of our news radio property, and he's hungry for it. Is he the best broadcaster? No, but he's working on his craft. You know what I mean? Is he like, you can't be good without experience. And so is he in putting in the time to do it? Yes. He's doing his own show on an ESPN sports because that's what fills his tank. He's working on he's the morning show producer. I need more of him. We need to find more of him. So those guys are gold if you can find it.
Well, Brent, with everything you've got to do in a given day, week, month, I appreciate the time you've given us here this afternoon on Air Check. The amount of involvement that you've got going on in your community just speaks to the kind of person you are, and you definitely deserve these awards that we were speaking about here today. And I just wish you continued success. I hope you find a morning co-host soon.
Me too. It's a lot of plates to spin. So if you're watching this or you're listening to this, we're taking tapes now.
Yeah, Brent, I'd like to thank you for your time on this Air Check session. To hear radio stories from different formats is very cool. There are similarities, but there's also many differences. And Paul and I have spent our entire 30-plus years in radio on the rock side. But as we've said, it's nice to see how the country radio and the artist relationships are so tight. It's very inspiring. And equally inspiring is your journey and your connection to the community that you're currently serving in Pensacola. So, again, thank you, and I wish you nothing but continued success.
Hey, man, thank you for letting me come on and talk a little bit about the philosophy that I believe in, and wish you guys the best as well. And I hope we get a chance to hang out in person at CRS next time.
You betcha. I'm buying.
I love it. Thank you very much.
Brent Lane. Success through service says it all.
A tip of the old Stetson to you, Brent Lane. Really a great guy.
Air Check Season 3 continues. Don't forget every episode of Air Check Seasons 1, 2, and 3 now available, including Forever Media owner and Country Radio Hall of Famer Kirby Confer. WEBN Cincinnati morning host Kid Chris, the creator of the classic rock radio format, consultant Fred Jacobs, plus Nina Blackwood, Danny Bonaducci, Debbie Cowton, Eddie Trunk.
You can stream or download every episode of Air Check on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also tell your smart speaker to play Air Check Podcast. If you haven't done so yet, give us a great rating.
This is Rich DeSisto.
And I'm Paul Kelly.
We'll talk to you soon.
Closing out another episode of Air Check, a podcast about radio's personality from radio personalities. If you have radio stories to share, we'd love to hear from you. Join the Air Check guest list. Email aircheckme@gmail.com. Musical props are Chris Gordon's. Announcer props, I'll take those. Greg O'Brien, the OB. Air Check is available now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You can also tell your smart speaker to play Air Check Podcast. Air Check is the creation of RDPK Productions.